Hello and welcome back. We're on page 73, lesson 15 of the Roger Hudson guitar method. We're in the key of E major. E major has four sharps: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. D sharp is the new sharp we're adding. It's the leading tone. Remember, the sharp that is farthest to the right that's added in the key signature in the sharp keys is the leading tone of that key in the major key, D sharp, E. So you have a D sharp on the 4th fret, 2nd string, and a D sharp on the 1st fret, 4th string. We'll go up to the G sharp on the 1st string in this first position E major scale. The first study we have on page 73 is the E major scale study number 1. We'll be in first position the entire time. We also have some chords at the end. All right. Once again, that last chord has 6 notes in it, so you'll need to drag your thumb to play 3 strings when you play that block chord. In the next exercise, the E major speed study, notice that there are places, measure 3 for example, where you're going to need to play 2 different fingers on the same fret. Right there again, it happens at measure 5. We play the C sharp to the A. This scale is in thirds. It doesn't go up in a scale-wise way. It skips notes, so you're going E, G, F sharp, A, G sharp, B, like that. So it's a sort of a stair-step kind of way of playing the scale in thirds. So you might want to try this slowly at first, and then later on work on speeding it up. Use a metronome at a very slow tempo, and then gradually increase the metronome speed. Here's the E major speed study. Let's go slow. 1 E and 2 E and you might want to use a metronome to see how much faster you can get. Start with it slow and then gradually increase the metronome speed. Continuing lesson 15 on page 74, we have 2 versions of a prelude that I wrote. You'll have 2 different right hand patterns. The first version of the prelude will be PIMA. The second version of the prelude is PAIM. Just because of the differences in the patterns, the prelude versions will sound very different. It's in 16th notes, so just go to slow tempo. And one of the things I noticed when I was working on this piece is it's actually a lot trickier and more challenging than I originally thought. There are a lot of chords where you really have to play on the tips of your fingers. I've been talking about this a lot. For example, right here, when you're playing at the very beginning, make sure that you're playing right on the very tips right there. The other thing I had to do too is cut my left hand nails. Sometimes they get a little bit long, so make sure you cut your left hand nails. I haven't talked much about the right hand nails and how to file them and care for them if you're going to grow your right hand nails out to play. I think with a little bit of research online, you'll probably find some videos of people that go into great detail about how to care for your nails. Everybody has sort of different nails, and you may want to experiment with some different shapes. The one thing I can tell you is you don't want to grow them too long. So maybe do some research online and see if you can find some good websites about nail care. So in Prelude, there are some sections here where you really have to shift smoothly. For example, if you look from measure 3 to measure 4, we have this right here where we're going. What happens is right there, you can make the shift because there's a bass note on the downbeat of measure 4. So that gives you an opportunity to make that shift. Anytime there's an open string that is on the downbeat of a shift, or if there's an open string that's maybe the last note that happens before a shift, I have a little saying, O is for opportunity, meaning that the open string, 0 or O, is an opportunity for you to shift. So anytime there's an open string, that gives you a chance to shift. That gives you the opportunity to shift. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these shifts. Also, there are accidentals here. Measure 5, we go to C, a C major 7 chord. Those notes cancel out the accidentals that are in the key signature. Another thing that I should say that sometimes people get confused with is that the accidentals, the sharps or flats, are natural signs. In this case, measure 5 has natural signs. Those cancel out that particular sharp that would be in the key signature for that measure. It doesn't affect some other notes. Sometimes students get confused. They think that if there's a natural sign or a sharp or an accidental put in one note, that all the other notes in that measure are affected. No, it's just the notes that are that letter name. So make sure you don't get confused by that. Also, it usually sounds really strange when you do things like that. So make sure that if it doesn't sound right, there's probably something wrong. Although in this particular measure, there's quite a big change. We're going from this chord here, I'm at measure 4. And then it goes to this chord. That's quite a big left turn right there. Alright. And then this is a bar here. Alright. I just kept the bar down. You don't have to. I like to keep the bar down really because you're already there anyway, so you might as well. That's at measure 6. Then you have a shift up to 4th position, 4 strings, 4th position. All right. So all those the sharp in there, the G sharp. G sharp there, F sharp there. Alright, then you shift because you'll have an open string. Then you shift all the way down here to this D sharp. So there are a lot of shifts. You have to move very quickly but very smoothly. Try to limit the squeaks on the strings. Sometimes it's almost impossible to eliminate them completely, but do your best, make it clear. The next version of the Prelude has the same chords, same shapes on the left hand, but the right hand pattern will change. In addition to the right hand pattern being different in this second Prelude on page 74, I also added one note, third line, second measure, this line that goes like that. So you have this shape, and this shape, whereas in the first Prelude you had this 2 times and then it went to that. So this line goes down like that. So just make sure you pay attention to that. It's a little difference. On page 75, we have a solo called Waiting for a Friend. And this one also is one where you need to make sure that you're playing on the very tips of your fingers. There will be notes that you hold, that you're fretting, while you're playing notes that are open strings, so you need to make sure that all those notes ring out clearly. There are also a lot of pull-offs in this one. And you want to try to make sure you're flicking right here on the at the very beginning. And then you have a lot of shifts as well. Notice the string numbers. Something else to notice in Waiting for a Friend, the 4th line down, the second ending there's a change in time signature. It goes to 3/4 here, which leads into a transitional section. A little storm coming up. Transitional section, which is the 5th line down. Very different section right there. There's a big change. There's forte at measure 10. There are a lot of shifts here, bar chords. Pay close attention to those and the accidentals. Right there. And it goes back to the beginning. You can play this piece very, very slowly, as indicated in the tempo marking. You can also play it faster if you'd like to. You can play it sort of as a study for shifting. So I hope you like it. Continuing lesson 15 on page 76, we have a duet version of an old hymn, Softly and Tenderly. In this one, the guitar one part will be using the same shape of a major scale. Actually, only will be using one octave of the scale, a little bit over one octave. Remember when we played the D major scale in second position with no open strings? If you play that exact same pattern, 2 frets up, starting with the 4th finger here, you'll have an E major scale. Keep your left hand here. Most of the time for the guitar one part, you'll be able to play the notes that are in this song. So make sure that you don't move up and down the fingerboard. You don't really need to in this piece. You're in E. The lowest note that you're going to have to play in the guitar one part looks like there's a B here. I don't see anything lower than that. And then the highest note will be the high E right at the very end. You will be playing a B, E flat, that's at measure 17. But most everything is right here in the 4th position. So make sure you pay close attention to the finger numbers, the string numbers, particularly the string numbers, the numbers with the circle. The guitar 2 part is mostly arpeggios. There are a lot of variations to the arpeggios that I put in here just to add some variety, so you'll need to pay close attention to what happens with the arpeggios and the different order of the notes in the arpeggios. On the second page, measure 20. Make sure you do that. You have a couple of shifts there to play. You also at the beginning are going to need to shift like this. So it's not all in first position. There's some second position notes to play in there. And at the end, you'll need to shift. The rest of it is pretty simple. Just watch those arpeggios. They're in a different order. There's a lot of detail there. You can go very slowly with this one. I should also mention that with any of these duets where, for example, the guitar one part is a single line, there are no chords or anything, or no double notes, intervals or anything like that. In those parts, an instrument such as a violin, flute, recorder, another guitar, a mandolin, what are called C instruments. In other words, instruments that read the notes as the same letter name that we do on guitar. They can also play these melodies. So this gives you some options. Gives you some options for people that you could play these duets with. Finishing off lesson 15, page 78, we have Got Rhythm. This one almost didn't make the cut in the book because after I wrote it and put it in this lesson with E major, I thought, well, this thing is really hard, and is anybody going to be able to play this that has only got up to page 78, and you're already going to be playing something that's really complicated rhythmically? But I found out that my students were interested in it and wanted to play it, and some of them can play it. So I'm glad I left it in, and I like it pretty well. It's a lot of fun to play. I liked it so much that I actually use it for my theme, if you haven't noticed, at the beginning and the end of my videos. So Got Rhythm has got a lot of 16th notes. You'll have to subdivide the beat into 4 16th notes. We've got 16th rests. So there's a lot of that, similar to what we did in Un poco de bossa. Also, there's a lot of a juxtaposition of triplets and the 8th note, 2/16th note patterns. These are two different types of patterns that get confused quite a bit. Remember, triplets, you divide the beat into 3 equal parts. Triplet, triplet, 1 and 2 and some people count it that way. Wonderful, wonderful is my favorite way of doing it. Then you have the 8th, 16ths. That would be 1 and da 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 da, not a da 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 da. Those are two different rhythms. Don't confuse those two. Triplets. You see that in the second measure. 1 E and da. So that's probably the trickiest little rhythm. That's the second measure. Also, another tricky thing is at the sign, the third measure, we have this sort of intro, rhythmic intro. So this is what's called a nested triplet, when you have the 3 with a bracket that shows you that you need to count those, that rhythm as triplet, but the first 2 triplets are rests. Rest, rest, triplet, da, 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 1, 2, ba, ba. So it's 1, 2. That's right there in measure 3. 1, 2, da, 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 da. So that's what's called a nested triplet. Also, we have a lot of shifts. We have a lot of open strings against fretted notes. For example, right at the beginning. That right there is in 4th position, open 1st string, 4th finger's on the 2nd string. You can tell by the string number. It's circled. You also have a 3rd finger C sharp. I didn't put the string number for the C sharp because you couldn't play the C sharp down here. So after a while, you'll begin to understand the context of the music. If your 4th finger's up here playing a 2nd string F sharp, your first finger, your C sharp is not going to be anywhere but right there in that same area. It won't be down here. It won't be up here either. So this is where you're starting to learn the multiple places that you can play a single note. There are some tricky things that you've got to play quickly. Measure 7. This is probably another hard part. That has got almost all the different well, it doesn't have all the different rhythm figures that are in this piece, but it has several. So it's 1 E and a triplet, triplet, triplet. And then there's another nested triplet in measure 8. So you got your work cut out for you for the rhythm. That's why I call it Got Rhythm. But I hope you enjoy it. You'll love it when you get through with it. See you in lesson 16.